whether that's the number one team in the country or the last team in the country. I think you have to be comfortable where you are. You have to feel like you fit in where you are. I would rather be on the worst team in the country and be developing as a human and as a player more than being on the best team.
Welcome to Hockey Culture, everyone. This is the place where we try to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. And today we've got a very special edition of Hockey Culture. This is the Frozen 4 edition of Hockey Culture. We've got a very esteemed panel joining us today, led by University of Nebraska, Omaha assistant coach Paul Jerrard. We have Jasper Weatherby from North Dakota and Saville from University of Nebraska, Omaha as well. Fellas, welcome.
How are you doing?
Doing great. As a former college hockey player myself, I know your days are very busy with studying and practice. So I thank you guys for joining me today in this very special edition of Hockey Culture. I want to start with you, Coach Jerrard. You played the National Hockey League. You coached the National Hockey League. And now you're doing your thing as assistant coach there at University of Nebraska, Omaha. What was the motivating factor for you to come back from the NHL and coach the college hockey level?
Well, as you know, I've been in pro hockey for a number of years, the American League, and finishing up in the NHL in Calgary. And I just, again, after 24 years of coaching and just being up, down, all around, I just thought I had a great opportunity here in college hockey at University of Nebraska, Omaha, in a tremendous hockey league. And I just thought I'd try something new. I mean, I started in college hockey when I first retired from playing, and always, loved it and wanted to get back. And I had a great opportunity to come back and work with the young players here.
You were standard at Lake Superior State University. When you're playing college hockey at the time, did it ever cross your mind that you're A, going to become a coach, but then B, become a coach back at the college hockey level?
Well, it was always something that I always wanted to do once I was done playing, and had a 10-year pro career, mostly in the minors. And then once my career was done, I had an option to get into college hockey. So that's when I went back to Lake Superior State and started my coaching career. And it was just something I've always dreamed about. Lake State has a special spot in my heart, and I've always loved it back there. And went back there for a few years and had an opportunity to get into pro game, and kind of just took it from there and stayed in the pro game, I think, for 17 or 18 years, and decided to come back to college. And that's how I ended up back here at University of Nebraska, Omaha.
And Isaiah, you're a netminder on Coach Jerrard's team. What was it like having a person of color walk into your house and recruit you to go to university?
Oh, it was super special. I mean, obviously being Black as a minority in the sport, and it was just really special being able to have PJ come to my games when I played in Tri-City. He came to a lot of them when we were in Lincoln and in Omaha and stuff like that. And so being able to build that connection kind of together throughout the years before I even got to the school was really special for me to have that familiar face when I got to school, making me more comfortable. What
was it about Nebraska, Omaha that made you interested? You're the goaltender of the year, the USHL. 5th round draft pick, Vegas Golden Knights. What was it about Omaha that made you say that's the place where I want to be? Because you could see I'm rocking my green and white, my Michigan colors now. I knew the first day I set foot on campus in East Lansing, Michigan, that was the place for me. What was the tipping point for you to go to Nebraska, Omaha?
Yeah, I mean, it just was kind of the culture there and how I felt when I would visit, and I feel like that's what it's all about. It's not about trying to go to the number one team in the country. It's more about where do you feel most comfortable? Where do you want to spend 4 years of your life living and kind of developing as a person, as a hockey player? And whether that's the number one team in the country or the last team in the country, I think you have to be comfortable where you are. You have to feel like you fit in where you are. I would rather be on the worst team in the country and be developing as a human and as a player more than being on the best team and not loving my life on there. And I love it here in Omaha, and it's such a special place for me. And I know all the guys on our team, it's very special to them, and they feel that love in the Omaha city as much as I do.
Did you have any experiences when you're on campus where you miss being at home? I could go back to my first time being in the cafeteria at Wonders Hall, Michigan State University. And I walked in, and anyone that knows me knows I love to eat, especially during training times. And I went in for my second or third dessert. And one of my good friends, he became one of my good friends at school. His name was Brad Fields. He ran track at State. And he walked up to me and said, he goes, "Yo, bro, what are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "How come you're sitting with those guys?" And when you walk in the cafeteria, all the white people sat around the cafeteria and all the black people sat together. And I noticed that right away, but I didn't say anything to my teammates. And he obviously noticed that too, because I was sitting with all my white hockey players. He said, "Why don't you come and sit with us?" I said, "Well, these are my teammates." And he looked at me like I was green. I know it was Michigan State and all, but I was like, "Those are my teammates." He goes, "What do you mean your teammates?" I said, "I play hockey." He's like, "Hockey? What are you talking about hockey?" And I thought it was so crazy that people would think that it was weird that I was sitting with white people. To make a long story short, as the year started to wind down, we had black people sitting with white people sitting with black people, boys and girls sitting together. It didn't really matter anymore. It all started because Brad and I had that conversation with our teammates. Did you have one of those like aha moments the first time you stepped foot on campus where you're like, "Wow, this is a little bit different than what I'm used to"?
Not really. I don't think I've had that experience here where like everyone's kind of included with everything. Mostly it's a lot of the athletes hang out a lot, and kind of there's always that like interchanging between athletes where everyone's kind of friends, everyone has that same mutual respect. So you'll see like the basketball players hanging out with the soccer players, the hockey players hanging out with the soccer players and stuff like that. There's all interchangeable kind of like that, where I haven't seen that kind of barrier where it's just like, oh, these people are hanging out with these people. But to the kind of missing home part, I miss my dad's cooking a lot. I'm not a huge chef. That's one thing that I miss a lot. I haven't been home in a little while, so it's always difficult kind of making my own meals, I want to say, even though it's not that hard. But I miss when I can wake up and my dad's got some breakfast burritos ready for me and stuff like that.
What else did you miss from the home cooking? Because I'm Caribbean, jerk chicken, oxtail, rice and peas, love it. And actually the first time I went home for the first break we had that first weekend, I took a 7-hour train ride home, and I actually tried to miss my train ride back because I'm so homesick after the first week. My mom said, "Anson, get your behind out of bed. You're going back to school." So I can relate to what you missed from home. Like, what else do you miss from being at home?
I just miss the family time. I'm super close with all my family members. We do kind of every week, a couple weeks, we all go to my grandma's house usually. It was a little different with COVID last summer, but we try and get together all the time. All of our family birthdays are at my grandma's house. It's always a big gathering with all of our family. Everyone brings different food, and which I love. And I'm a big fish guy, but my one thing is I'll only eat fish if it's from Alaska. So I miss being up at home, being able to go catch a fish and bring it home and eat it. And so there's just that kind of stuff. My friends, obviously, but for the most part, it's getting that good quality time with my family and being able to really spend all that time with them.
Were you aware of Scott Gomez there in Alaska? Scotty Gomez always tells me, Gomer's like, "I'm the king of Alaska." I was like, Alaska's not that big. I played in Anchorage. I played in Fairbanks. We had college hockey games. I was like, "Gomer, it's not that big. What are you talking about?" "I'm the king of Alaska, Ace. I'm the king." Was he a big deal in Alaska when you're growing up? Because I can't imagine the hockey community could be that big in Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge deal in Alaska. He has his own kind of hockey foundation up there that helps out underprivileged kids who maybe don't have a ton of money. And it gives them the opportunity to explore hockey and learn how to skate and get to really experience that passion that you feel when you're playing hockey. And so he's a big part of the hockey community up in Alaska. And I know everyone in Alaska is very thankful for what he's done. And his dad is a huge part of it as well. He kind of runs that organization. So yeah, he's a big deal up there.
Dad Carlos, and he would always tell me too, "My name is Scott Carlos Gomez, so don't think for a second people don't know that I'm not Hispanic." And that was the biggest loss I thought that New Jersey had. Even though they're winning those championships, they had an opportunity to market a player like Gomer to the Latino community, and they didn't. They said, "We're going to try to just focus on team and Brodeur and Scotty Stevens." And you had a dynamic young player of that Hispanic heritage in Scotty Gomez that was a great personality too. And we're talking about now how we want to expand the game. I thought that was a big miss for the New Jersey Devils in the 2000s.
Yeah.
And Jasper, don't think I'm letting you off the hook. I couldn't wait to talk to you. And I'll tell you why. When all this stuff was happening with George Floyd, there was a big time awakening when it came to social justice and people being aware of what's happening around and all the injustices that were happening to minorities. you took that big step of kneeling at North Dakota with Jacob Bernard Docker, your teammate, Ottawa Senators prospect who just left school recently, and you guys kneeled before your first game. And that, for me, that was powerful because I had to look you guys up in this show. I was like, wait a minute, these guys aren't black. These guys are white that are doing this. And allyship is so huge. I couldn't wait to have a conversation with you. And as I did more research and learned about your background, I was even more fascinated because it's part of your blood. It's part of your family heritage. Your grandparents were so involved with the social justice movement. Your mom was so involved, your dad. So talk about your family a little bit and how important they are to you and what they've meant to you being involved with taking a stand to these injustices that you're seeing happening with people in the world.
Yeah, super involved and super supportive too. I think that growing up, I didn't really know the magnitude of kind of what they were doing in America and had done. But talking with them more and just kind of feeding off of them. And unfortunately, both of my grandparents have passed away now. But hearing some stories from my mom about them and just kind of the things that they would do. So having my grandma march in Selma, Alabama, and carrying an African-American baby and getting sprayed with a hose by police officers. So, I thought about that when I was, thinking about kneeling and, right then in that moment, she probably didn't think that, oh man, am I doing the right thing? The police officers are spraying me with the hose. But, you look back 30, 40 years now and she did the absolute right thing. So, super proud of my grandparents and my parents as well. And it's really nice to be able to bounce some ideas off of them.
And also your grandfather too, growing up as a young Jewish boy in London, had to flee due to the Nazis. And then he came over to the US, became an attorney, fought Jim Crow, fought with Thurgood Marshall, had a lot of discussions with MLK Jr. What has that influence had on you also?
Yeah, it's super powerful. Again, growing up, you don't really know these things. He's just, you're my grandpa. And now you kind of realize kind of the things that he did in his life and the kind of the stand he took for underprivileged people. And it's super powerful. And, I'm just kind of trying to do my part in the way that I can. So, I'm super grateful to come from a background like that.
And your brother being black, you grew up and you said, I've read many times that you didn't really understand as a young child why people would treat people differently. And you grew up in that blended family that you did. But there was a conversation your dad had with your brother the first time he drove cross country from Vermont from your dad's house to your mom's place in Oregon. And that was And that was a conversation that he didn't have with you. Why was that something that really hit home with you when your dad had that conversation with your brother, Kevin?
Yeah, that was super eye-opening for me. I think that was one of the first times that I kind of really understood the privilege I had. I think it just kind of shows that, while we are the same people and we drive, the same car and we're from the same family, the world can view us in such a different way. And for me that, I'd stopped in the same gas stations he'd stopped in. I'd stopped in the same towns. And again, it was just kind of like, I never, ever thought about that. I showed up, I pumped my gas, I went in, I got a bottle of water and a snack and didn't ever think of anything like that. So now for my dad to kind of tell my brother, be careful. And it was eye-opening. And even more eye-opening part was while he was driving, he stopped in a small town in the Midwest. I don't really know where it was. And someone told him, hey, don't stop here, get out of here. And I just remember thinking that that's really messed up. And kind of almost at a loss of okay, this is still going on. Are you kidding me? And that was really when the eyes opened. And then that kind of, I guess, rolled into the George Floyd. And, for a lot of, I'm sure, African Americans, you guys didn't just see George Floyd. You saw your brother or your dad or your father, or someone in your family. And for me, I saw my brother. And I saw, it hurt. So for me, it was okay, if I can join and somehow help, I'm gonna do that in my full power.
And what were the conversations like with your teammates? Because I'm sure it must have struck a nerve. North Dakota as a school, where it's located, I don't think it's the most diverse area in the country. So I'm sure it's something that probably raised a lot of red flags of people saying, what the hell are these guys doing? This isn't a place where we try to fight these battles. Sports should be about sports. It should be making these political statements, which I don't think talking about diversity and inclusivity is a political statement. It's about civil liberties. It's civil rights. It's what every man and woman should have, basic rights. So what were those conversations like within that community on campus and also within the locker room itself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the mix of people, research has showed it's just better. Getting different minorities together and creating something beautiful is amazing. So yeah, the conversations, they were obviously we started inside of our locker room, and I knew this summer that I wanted to kneel. Jacob Bernard Docker is my best friend. We lived together for the last 3 years. So he kind of approached me and he said, what, I feel really strongly about this. And so we took it to our team and our coaches, and our coaches were super, super supportive. And our team, we had a kind of a tough talk, and something that kind of stuck out to me was we were probably in there for an hour, and for a team, it was just a team meeting. And one of the guys stood up and he said, we might have different opinions, but that's what makes this country so great, is that we can come together. And he said, I respect your decision to kneel. He's like, I'm gonna be standing, but you have my full support. And for me, hearing that from him was unbelievable, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about coming together as a team and coming together as a group and as a country. And yeah, so inside the locker room, it was great. I know outside of the locker room, it raised a lot of eyes, and people were kind of looking at us, and that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted some dad to curse us out, and his little kid is like, well, why? And conversation to educate yourself. So it couldn't have worked out better. And I'm super proud of Jacob Bernard Docker and our whole entire hockey team for supporting us.
Yeah, I always think teamwork makes the dream work. And you can learn all these important life lessons by being a part of the team. And that story you just told just now about your teammate saying he's going to stand, but he'll still support you, I'd sent goosebumps down the back of my neck, because that's what coming together and working together is all about. You might not share the same ideas with people, but you have to respect the fact that people are allowed to think differently. Coach Jerrard, I want to ask you about going on recruiting trips. I know the assistant coach for a lot of college programs plays a huge role when it comes to recruiting. Do you ever have families looking at you sideways when you walk in the room for the first time, or walk in their house for this first time? Maybe not expecting a black head coach or a black assistant coach to walk inside and meet the family?
Yeah, it's sometimes you wonder on that for sure. You do get some double takes, but overall, once I get in and once I introduce myself and get talking and present myself, I usually seem to get in. But yeah, I've always thought that in the back of my mind, what they're perceiving. What's this person of color doing coming up with an Omaha jacket, Division I hockey? Well, it's interesting, but I'm an older guy now. I'm a lot older than these guys, and the one thing I can say is as I've grown, I've gotten quite comfortable in my skin, who I am and how I present myself, and I think that helps me.
You're on the college hockey for diversity, equity, and inclusion task force. What kind of conversations are you having with the group? Because it's not just assistant coaches like yourself. There's players like Jasper on there. There's women on there. There's a mix of individuals. What are those conversations like when you guys get together and have those talks?
Well, it's real interesting when we started that, and as you're right, Jasper is on it, and he's very instrumental in it. But we've been on many meetings. Obviously spurred by the George Floyd thing, we wanted to get something together. But the one thing we didn't come out and try to make a bold statement right away, like a lot of people. We wanted to come out and make a lasting statement with college hockey for DEI. And you're right, it has a wide mix of people on there. There's people of color, there's players on there, there's LGBTQ community on there too. So the whole thing is what you've talked about, Anson, there is the allyship. And we just want to make sure that we on that committee want to let the world know that we're welcoming to people of all different backgrounds and all different ethnicities and sexual preferences, that we want to just make sure college hockey is a welcoming place for those people. So it's been real good. And just to go back, the first part of it was just a lot of storytelling, why people were motivated, were interested in getting on this task force, and it's been real good, real enriching, and we're making some headway. and just getting our name out there.
What was your motivation? You're an assistant coach. You've been a coach for a long time, 20 years. You've had the ability to impact a lot of young men's lives. I know a lot of coaches that I hated. I still think about those coaches today. And the coaches that I love, I still think about those coaches today. Even though I haven't played for these guys in years, the impact that a coach has on a child or a young man's life, it goes a long ways. So what's been motivating you to get involved? Because you could have easily just said, you know what, I'm good. I'm a coach here. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. I'm doing what I have to do day to day. I don't have to do or go that extra mile. But you decided that isn't the case.
Well, you're absolutely right. And when I look back at everything that I have and who I am in life, I owe to the game of hockey. And the game of hockey has taught me so many things, not just about the sport, but just the way and how to deal with people, relationships, networking. And, for me, having the good fortune of playing the game and have coached at some pretty high levels, my big motivation was to obviously help grow the game from inside a little bit and help at the grassroots level with young players getting up, because as we diversify this society, we want to get a little bit more diversity in a predominantly white sport. And just going on there, using myself as an example and as a role model for people that, believe in their dreams, anything can happen, because I was no different than any other kid that grew up in Canada wanting to play in the National Hockey League. And, I didn't play in it, but I coached in it for 5 years and just been pretty fortunate to use my platform as a coach. And like I say, I take pride in myself as a human being, to deliver those messages and hopefully, again, be an inspiration to young people of color.
And Isaiah, what can you do? You're a current player right now, even though you're playing net and people might not see your face because you're in the mask, similar to Grant Fuhr did when he played. What can you do to help improve the culture of hockey and try to encourage more people of color to play the game and pick up a stick and say, hockey is a sport that I want to try?
Yeah, I have a cool story about that. I kind of mentor and coach a little black kid in Alaska. His name's Zane. And so I met him a few years ago, Steve Thompson. I don't know if any of you guys know who that is, but he's a goalie coach. And he kind of introduced us to each other. And he has kind of the same background as me, not knowing his real father and living with a white mom and stuff like that. And he's experienced at such a young age, he's about 11 years old, kind of the racism that's in the world, even so young like that. And so what I do is kind of I mentor him through all that stuff, and him and I will go to like trampoline park in Anchorage and kind of go run around a field and stuff, and kind of show him, give him that kind of brother figure and kind of guide him through like what racism is too. And I've had those talks with him, and his mother has talked to me about it, and how even on his hockey team, he kind of gets shunned out from everyone else just because he's different. And I've taught him that different isn't a bad thing, and different often is usually a good thing. And you don't want to be the same like everyone else. You want to be different, and that's kind of what I try and motivate him with. And being so young, you kind of have to use that language a little bit with like, be different, be fun, be cool. It's cool to be black. Like be yourself. Like kind of do that. Do your own thing. You don't need to be like everyone else. And so it's very heartwarming being able to kind of bring my life experiences into a almost younger version of myself. I like to say he has a big afro, like how I had when I was younger. And so he's definitely like a little brother to me. And I love every time I get to go home, I love to go spend that time with him. Another thing is I put a MLK quote on the back of my helmet, which is usually for goalie the most important part of your helmet. And, especially with this year, I thought it was more than necessary to put that back there and spread my support and my feelings out on my helmet. So every time a fan's behind me, they can see what I stand for and who I am.
Be yourself really hit home when you said that, because I can almost hear my mom and dad say, be yourself. And not so much when it comes to white or black, even within the black community themselves, where I had a lot of people look down at me and say, well, what are you playing hockey for? Like, hockey's a white person's game. And my parents always said, be yourself, because people will always find something to critique you about. They might say within the black community, you're too dark or you're too light. Your hair's too nappy. Your hair's too curly. Like, people are always going to say something. They're going to find a way to critique you. They don't like what you're doing. So might as well do what the hell you want to do and not have to worry about it.
Exactly.
I want to know, what are some of the toughest questions? Do they come from Zayd that you have been mentoring, or his mother, when it comes to dealing with race and situations that pop up in the arena, on the ice or off the ice?
A lot of it's been from his mother. He's not too much on the whole starting the conversation. What he experiences is, at least from what his mom tells me, is like, how does he handle maybe not getting an invite to all the guys on the team are hanging out, and like he doesn't get the invite, or maybe he's not the most talked to person in the locker room and stuff. And I told him, like, tell him to put himself out there. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is someone can say no, and maybe that's just what he needs to hear to realize, okay, maybe they're not someone that I want to hang out with. You know what I mean? It's kind of, and he can take initiative and be like, and ask why am I not the one that anyone wants to hang out with, and stuff like that. And it's not that no one wants to hang out with him, but kind of just that you can give that or feel that kind of sense of racism, and even in the younger community. And so that's just kind of how it goes, I guess, right now. And I'm trying to teach him how to deal with it and move forward with it, instead of kind of staying in his own little ball and just kind of keeping it inside and not expressing himself and letting it out, and talking to someone about it, and kind of taking initiative.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. Hockey moms are fierce.
Oh,
You not miss hockey moms, not at all. My mom will cuss you out if you do something wrong to Anson on the ice. So I know exactly what you're talking about, dealing with mothers. And, you know, Jasper, to talk with your mom, Lucinda, she protested apartheid at the South African embassy in DC. What kind of advice did your mom give you when it came to dealing with injustices and, you know, doing the right thing, period?
Yeah, she's same kind of thing, you know, be yourself. And her thing is, you know, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. Stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And she's, you know, reminded me that I'm in a very interesting position with the family background, and also being, you know, a white male. And she said, you know, the more that you can stand up for people who might not have as big of a voice. So it's been awesome to bounce ideas off of her. She's fully supportive.
Yeah, allyship is so critical to. It just can't be people of color, Black people stepping up saying this is wrong. We need to have white people and other races all joining arms together and trying to fight this. So I definitely appreciate you stepping up and taking the stand that you've taken. Coach Jerrard, I want to ask you about, why do you think there hasn't been a Black head coach in the National Hockey League yet?
Well, that's interesting question. I don't really know the answer, but when you take a look at a predominantly white sport, and again, what has to happen, I think, at the grassroots level here is you have to get more people involved in the game, people of color, and eventually I think that's going to happen. But as of right now, I don't really have that answer. I think there's some guys that could potentially qualify out there, but, you know, again, I think there's only one person of color in the National Hockey League on the bench right now.
Yeah, it's amazing how, you know, now we're starting to see an increase of coaches like yourself now come to the pipeline, and there's actually attention to detail being paid towards increasing that coaching pipeline of BIPOC candidates and women too, which at some point will increase the number of coaches you see at the National Hockey level, and even the college hockey level too. What you're doing has been inspiration for the last, 20 years of your coaching career. Well, I don't want to keep you guys very much longer. I want to thank you guys so much. I appreciate you joining me. I know there's a lot of stuff happening on campus, even though this is during COVID-19 days, the pandemic, it's a little bit different, but I appreciate everyone joining me today on this very special college hockey edition of Hockey Culture, and definitely keeping track of everyone's career. Coach Jerrard, thank you. Isaiah, thank you very much. And Jasper, I'm surprised you didn't turn pro, but I want to see you winning a national title maybe next year at No Doubt.